Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay, if you didn't know the words to that, no worries, no worries. So my name is Ajahn Kovilo. I'm a Theravada Buddhist monk in the Thai forest tradition. I ordained at a monastery called Abhayagiri, about 3 hours north of here, here in California. And I've been ordained for about 16 years. Been living in monasteries for almost 20 years, which is crazy. And now I'm starting a monastery with my monk brother, Ajahn Nisabo, up in Seattle. And if you ever come to Seattle, you're all very welcome to come and visit. It's a really warm and very mature community. I come down here because my mom lives in the Bay Area. She lives over in Menlo Park, and I was very happy to come down because she invited me to her Unitarian church for the first time. She goes to the UUCP, a Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto, and I was very happy to go and teach there. And it had a different format. Usually we do as we do here, about half an hour of meditation, then half an hour of some kind of reflections or a talk, and then some question and answers. And we will have some question and answers in a bit. But yesterday, at the talk at the Unitarian Church, my mom warned me. She says, they can only take 6 minutes of meditation. They can only take 6 minutes, Kovilo. She calls me Kovilo, which is great, because that's what everybody else calls me. Kovilo, they can only take 6 minutes. And I said, I don't care, Mom. We're doing 7. We're doing 7 minutes. So we had 7-minute meditations interspersed with a couple of reflections, then another 7-minute meditation to kind of ease them into peace, which is a nice thing. But all of you were able to do that half an hour, which, is anybody here meditating for the first time, or people have been around the block? All right, that's great. So I am used to living in monasteries, and living at a monastery, training at a monastery, listening to talks at a monastery. It's a little bit different flavor than you might have at meditation centers. And we're given a little bit more free rein to kind of go back to the oldest teachings and really speak to some things which might be a little bit outside of what most people think about most of the time. And I've lived at probably 10 or 15 monasteries in the US and in Thailand. I lived in Thailand for about 6 years. And I'm curious if anybody here might be able to guess what you think the largest community of non-Buddhist born, i.e. convert Buddhist monastics, monks and nuns in North and South America is. Does anybody have a guess? Anybody who might know the names of some monasteries? The largest community of convert Buddhist monastics? No guesses. Seattle. Oh, good guess. No, we are very small. We're very small. It's just me and my monk brother.
I would guess Abhayagiri.
Abhayagiri. It's a very good guess. Very good guess. It's a great community. But no, this is, I probably should have said broader Buddhist. So Theravada, in the Theravada tradition, Abhayagiri does have sometimes between 10 and 20 monks. But there's a really sweet and inspiring monastery in the Tibetan tradition called Sravasti Abbey, which is outside of Spokane. And they've got something like 22 or 25 monastics. And you might be like, no, that's nothing. That's nothing. But these are people who weren't born in Buddhist countries, who all came to Buddhism as adults are making a very conscious choice to live as monastics. And these are not, they're not green monastics. You know, you've got a very healthy and long-lasting system of monasticism, and you've got nuns. It's mostly bhikshunis, mostly nuns who've been in robes. You know, there's a good cohort who've been in robes for over 15 and 20 years, and that's kind of hard to find, especially in the Theravada. We can quit being monks or nuns at any time. It's so easy to stop being a monk in the Theravada, especially the Thai tradition. It's the norm that most people who take robes in Thailand will disrobe. We disrobe. So as you ordain, there's a large number of people at any one time in Thailand. You might have 200,000 monastics. And then all of your friends slowly start disrobing, and you lose more and more of your friends, and more of your friends just keep leaving the robes, and you might never see them again. Sometimes they say they'll come and visit, and then they don't, But that's the norm. So to find people, a community in the West of people who are not born Buddhist and have a longevity to their monastic life is hard. And I think one of the things which allows for that, the health of this community and really the long monastic life of those monastics, is they do a lot of meditation, a lot of breath meditation like we did tonight, but they also do something which is called lam rim, which is more analytic, basically thinking-based meditation. So they spend a lot of time just thinking about the Buddhist worldview, thinking about the Buddhist cosmos. In the beginning of this analytical lam rim meditation, there's what's called the four harrowing reflections, the four scary reflections. And they're spending quite a lot of time actually just thinking these out. And the four are the preciousness of a human birth. The preciousness of a human birth. And if you believe in the context of reincarnation, that there are multiple lives, then that has an especial potency to it. That this life is precious. You could be all sorts of other beings, all sorts of other realms in the Buddhist understanding of things. But precious, we're humans. The second one is the truth of aging, impermanence, and death. That's still the second. Just aging, impermanence, and death. All of us, it's true, we're all going to pass away. Nobody does not pass away. Even the Buddha, even celebrities. If I were to ask you to name a celebrity, they're already dead or they will be dead. And this doesn't have to be frightening, but it is somewhat. It is a little bit, brings about some wariness when you recollect that, life is not permanent. The third reflection is the truth of karma, that what you do has effects. And when you act with a wholesome mind, it leads to wholesome or happy results. And when you act with an unwholesome mind, a mind of greed, anger, and delusion, it leads to suffering. And the fourth harrowing thought is the dangers of samsara. So they're thinking about this a lot. And it does lead to, if you're actively thinking about this alternative worldview, none of us, maybe some of you were raised with that worldview, but for people born in the West to non-Buddhist, maybe non-Hindu parents, it's a very novel thing. Our worldview does not really include these reflections. We don't reflect on the precious human birth that we have. We don't think about death very much. We don't think about karma very much, and we don't think about samsara. But when you do, and there's no real reason why you haven't, other than just the accident of your birth in a family or into a society where this is not the norm. You're not encouraged to think about these things. And you don't know that they're not true. You don't know that they're not true. None of us know that rebirth is not true. So I thought tonight would speak specifically about what's called Saddha in Buddhism, Shraddha in Sanskrit. So this is sometimes translated as faith, but some people, you hear the word faith and you just want to leave as soon as I stop looking at you. You just want to leave as soon as possible. But it can also be translated as confidence. And yeah, one of the people at the Unitarian Church yesterday, they quoted, I think it's a Unitarian saint, in Bob Dylan. They quoted Bob Dylan to me. And yeah, Bob Dylan had a great song, "You got to serve somebody. You got to serve somebody." It may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you got to serve somebody. And all of us are walking around with presuppositions and unexamined worldviews that we just picked up from who knows where, from the media or our families or our friends. It's just, for the most part, totally haphazard. You just haven't really given it any thought of whether or not, what happens at the moment of death. We haven't thought about it. So this word Saddha, it literally means the placing of the heart. So da is the root, which means to place, literally to place down, or to support, or to nourish. And sad is a prefix, which means the heart. So it's literally the placing of the heart and being conscious of how we're doing that. What is your underlying presupposition about the way that the world and the universe works? And the basis, faith, the basis belief in Buddhism, the most fundamental, is something which hopefully everybody can get on board with. And I'm not going to try to brainwash you in the next 15 minutes to believe utterly in that you might be reborn as a ghost, or in heaven, or in hell, or wherever it is. I'm not going to try to convince you of that. The fundamental, the basic faith in Buddhism is very simple. It is possible to abandon unwholesome mental states, and it is possible to cultivate wholesome mental states. And you have to have a belief about that. And you can't prove it one way or another until maybe you achieve enlightenment. But you can't prove it. It could be possible that there's a God and everything is totally predetermined. It's a determined universe, or everything happens by chance and you don't have any control. But in a Buddhist worldview, we take on this supposition that it is possible to abandon unwholesome habits. It is possible to cultivate wholesome habits. And this is just a really nice view of the world to have, because it enables any good habit that you want to create, that you want to inculcate, engender, to bring about in your life. If you want to be a better soccer player, it's good to believe it is possible to cultivate whatever, being a goalie or being a fullback, halfback, frontline. It is possible to abandon the laziness that would inhibit your cultivation of any skill. And so that's great, very fundamental. And if you've never thought about that, if you thought, oh, maybe the universe is just totally random, or maybe it's preordained by a God, the Buddha is very actively encouraging us to take on this belief that it is possible to abandon unwholesome states, and it is possible to cultivate wholesome states. So that's the fundamental. And it might sound totally boring, but it's good to make it conscious, because this is really, when you don't believe in this, the antithesis of that is depression. When you believe that it's not possible to abandon unwholesome mental states, that's just the mire of being stuck in depression. That's the default of a depressive mind state. And none of us are absolutely free until we attain some level of enlightenment from a depressive mental state. So you can inoculate yourself to that by actively kind of massaging this into the mind. Okay, the Buddha said it's possible to get better at being happy. And it's possible to get better at not being unhappy. It is possible to cultivate well-being in our lives. So that's the basic. But I also wanted to talk today about another belief, which it's not as perhaps wild as saying that you might be reborn as a alligator or as a ghost or whatever it is, but it is a belief that Nibbana is a real thing, nirvana, the complete ending of greed, anger, and delusion, of suffering, the second arrow of suffering, that is a real thing. And this is a belief. This is a belief. And does anybody here know Rick Hanson? He's an author. Awesome. He wrote The Buddha's Brain. He wrote Neurodharma. He's a neuroscientist, Dharma teacher. He's got a podcast called, I think, Getting Well or Being Well with his son. And he's just a really sweet guy. In Seattle, we do interviews with all sorts of Buddhist leaders and authors. And we've interviewed him and have just struck up a really nice friendship. Cool person, Rick Hanson. But he draws this very interesting distinction between supernatural beliefs and transcendent beliefs. So believing in things which are supernatural and believing in things which are transcendent. So in Theravada Buddhism, really in most all forms of traditional Buddhism, you do find this wider cosmic view of what Rick Hanson calls the supernatural beliefs, that there is this samsara, But this other realm of beliefs, believing in the transcendent, is for him, and I think it's a useful framework to take, it's a different type of belief. It takes less, you have to kind of put at bay the skeptical mind less. So with the worldview of samsara, that might be a bit far, because probably for most of us, other than the animal realm, which we might see every day in our cats and our dogs and our squirrels or whatever it is, we haven't seen ghost realms or heaven realms. So it's hard to just believe yourself, to force yourself into that view. But the view that maybe it is possible, maybe nirvana is possible. And there's a great sutta, which is a discourse of the Buddha. It's called the Apanaka Sutta, or the Incontrovertible Sutta. And the Buddha does this a number of times. It just says, kind of like a Buddhist Pascal's wager. So Pascal has this famous adage that basically, in his framework of a Christian belief, it makes sense to believe in God, because if you believe, then if there is heaven, then you'll go to it. And if you don't believe, then, and there's no hell, then there's no real problem in it. So it's basically a gamble, and it's a winning bet. And so here in this Buddhist Pascal's wager, he says, it makes sense to believe in Nibbana. He says you can believe, and there are samanas and brahmins, there's contemplatives, there's spiritual seekers who say, no, there's no nirvana. It's impossible to transcend greed, anger, and delusion. And there are other people who say, actually it is possible to transcend greed, anger, and delusion, to transcend the suffering which is unnecessary. So it might be useful here to point out this distinction between first arrow, suffering, and second arrow, suffering. So this is a simile from the time of the Buddha. The Buddha says that it's as if all of us are stabbed with a first arrow. Someone has shot us with an arrow. And all humans, that includes the Buddha, it includes every enlightened being, experiences the first arrow, dukkha, which means suffering, means pain, the physical pain of having a body. If you're not experiencing any physical pain now, probably at some point in the future, it'll happen. It's just part and parcel of having a human body is that it's not super pleasurable all the time. We have a body which is subject to the rules of physics and biology, and things are constantly changing in there, and pain is the first arrow, and it's unavoidable. Pain is unavoidable. But the second arrow is suffering. And that suffering, the mental thing that we add on top of that, that's the second arrow, and that is optional. So what we're doing in Buddhism is training in not stabbing ourselves with this problematization of the physical pain of having a body. The Buddha had backaches, but he didn't make a problem out of it. He had physical ailments, but it wasn't at all a problem. He had trained his mind. He had attained Nibbana, which he knows the full dynamics of how a human mind causes suffering, unnecessary suffering for itself. And it wasn't just him. He taught how you can do it. That's what the Sangha is, this principle of enlightened being, enlightenness. All of the monks and nuns and laymen, laywomen through the course of Buddhist history, he taught us how to do that. He taught us that we can train the mind to not stab ourselves with this second arrow. And really that is what we're training in doing as we sit down to meditate. We're learning how to focus and pay attention to something that's very, very simple. Learning how to not be bored. And certainly boredom is like, that's a totally unnecessary thing. When you know how to train the mind and just pay attention, attention is just inherently rewarding in and of itself. You can, if you know how to pay attention, then just tying your shoes can be enjoyable. Nothing has to be boring. So that's one definition of nirvana, is no longer stabbing ourselves with that second arrow, complete transcendence of dukkha, the mental suffering which is unnecessary. Another definition is completely transcending greed, anger, and delusion. So I'll just stick with those four. So now that I've mentioned that this is a belief, which, if you had never thought about it before, does nirvana exist or does it not? Then you've kind of just been flopping around back and forth. Okay, maybe it's possible, maybe it's not, maybe I've never thought about it. But now that the question has been raised, you kind of have to think about it. And you can either believe, that nirvana is possible. It is possible to transcend greed, anger, and delusion. It is possible to transcend unnecessary suffering, or it's not. And there are repercussions. There are effects. Our beliefs do have effects in the world. It's huge. The first of the Noble Eightfold Path, this is the path of Buddhism, all of the teachings, it starts with right view. And the Buddha said that right view comes first, and that all of the 7 other factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, right view circles around all of these. So it's, in Buddhism, it's a right view to say, and by right, the word is samma, which does have resonance with just being in tune. So it's a harmonious view. These are right as in just right. Oh yeah, it's just right. It's just right. It's in tune with the way the universe works. And so the right view, the harmonious view, the in sync view is that it is possible, and not that it's difficult. You can't really force yourself to believe anything. But you can, just as the bhikshunis at Shravasti Abbey do, you look at these things and you think about them like, maybe it is possible. Maybe it is possible to really not suffer, for the mind to not suffer with the body. Maybe that's possible. Maybe it is possible to never get angry. And you really have to qualify that. The word the Buddha used was dosa, which in Pali, the Buddhist language, was much more specific than anger in English. You need to have a differential diagnosis of the English word anger. Because a lot of people, especially you go to a Unitarian church and tell them to get rid of their anger, everybody's going to get pissed. Everybody's like immediately going to be, what about righteous? I need my anger to fight the whatever. There's lots of hand There's lots of that in Unitarian Church, but yeah. So righteous indignation, Buddhism is not about it's not about getting rid of your discernment. All of Buddhism is about seeing things more and more clearly. But the problem with dosa, or this anger, is that it prevents you from seeing clearly. When you add the goggles of dosa, of aversion, to your critical mind, the words that come out of your mouth will not be as productive as you think they are. There's a great saying in Thai Buddhism, true but not right, right but not true. It's like you're saying words. What I'm saying is true. I'm speaking truth to power. And nobody wants to hear it when you're being a jerk. Nobody wants to hear it when you're being a jerk. And even if you've got the best argument for why my case is right, if you're just, boiling with anger, people don't want to hear it. So, being able to harness both the energy, right effort is a part of the Eightfold Path. Right discernment is definitely something we need to be cultivating, right seeing, but transcending the aversion that isn't helpful, and that the Buddha says it is possible to completely transcend it to where it doesn't even arise. And similarly with greed, you can train the mind to really not even have greed arise. And many psychologists, psychiatrists will say that's not a healthy view, and it's not possible. And first of all, they don't know that it's not possible. Just because we haven't experienced something doesn't mean that it's not possible. And we always have to relate to any teaching that we hear with our own wisdom. And you can't force these teachings. You can't, lather, an enlightened mind onto wherever we're at right now. And we will experience, if we're not yet enlightened, and chances are most of us aren't, we will have greed and anger and confusion come up in our mind. And we need to not just pretend it's not there. We need to get better and better at figuring out healthy ways of dealing with that. And maybe having this longer range view that maybe it is possible to actually transcend it. And if you don't have that view, it's possible that you might be working from a presumption that actually validates and excuses your anger, saying, oh, it's just totally normal, and everybody gets angry, and there's no way around it, and it would be oppressive and suppressive for me to not, act on my anger. So we're not telling you to, suppress anything or repress anything, but just to be wise and to realize that there are results to your actions. So I thought to end with another just 3 minutes of a little bit of thinking meditation in line with the Lam Rim, but something they do a lot of at Sravasti Abbey, and we do at any monastery, and if you came here at the beginning, you would have seen me do it, is bowing. There's lots of bowing at Buddhist monasteries, and really it is a beautiful practice. And it's kind of good exercise, especially if you do it Tibetan style. You're all the way on the ground, up and down. It's like a Buddhist burpee, just Buddhist burpee. It's awesome, great exercise. And what you're doing is bowing to something meaningful. So traditionally in Buddhist context, we bow 3 times to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And I would encourage people to see if you can. This is a real call to action. You're not doing anything. You're not being brainwashed if you were to go home and bow. It's a action. It's a physical movement that a human body can do. It's just yoga in a sense. There's nothing magical, or you're not committing your life to Buddhism if you don't want to do that. It's a physical action, and it is an orientation. You are orienting your life to something meaningful. And I'll give some reflections for all of you to think about for how to make each of those 3 bows meaningful. But you're orienting your life as monks, as nuns. First thing we do upon waking, as soon as the alarm goes off, 3 bows. And usually, most every hut I've lived in, there's a shrine, and I bow 3 times. And then before going to bed, bow 3 times. And I come up and I see a Buddha, and bow 3 times. And you realize that it's not a silly giving away of your free will, which totally brainwashed people do. It's a beautiful gesture which orients your life. So these 3 gestures, the first bow is, I'll prompt you, we'll spend 1 minute to, that question is, what is your long-range goal? What is your longest range goal in life? And this can be your first bow. And if you already have a bowing practice, it can become stale if you actually don't imbue it with meaning. So what is your long-range goal? It can be nirvana. It can be being a good person, being a good athlete, whatever it is. And really do ask yourself. And think, okay, if I ever take up bowing, or if I bow tonight before bed, my first bow will be to that long-range goal. I'm priming my sleep, priming my dreams with this long-range goal. And the second bow, the Dharma, is your present moment intention. With that second moment, that second bow, is what do I hope to be living into this present moment? What do I want to bring to every moment, to each and every present moment? And really ask yourself. And this is an extremely powerful practice, so don't just give what you think is the best Buddhist answer if that's not what's most resonant. Present moment goal. And third bow is your communal goal. So it can be, I bow to the Sangha for the welfare and happiness of all beings. Or whatever your communal goal is, your familial goal. Okay. And so that's 3 bow practice. 3 bow practice. And before I get up, I'll show you how we do bows in the Thai forest tradition, but there's lots of ways of bowing. Koreans bow differently from Tibetan Buddhists, bow differently from Thai Buddhists, bow different from Sri Lankan Buddhists. And really it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you bow. But to believe maybe there's something greater than me, and maybe there's something greater than just the distraction or just willy-nilliness that is our general life. So, all right, I'll end there and open things up to questions if anybody had any thoughts.
For me, the idea of believing in nirvana or not doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
But I get a lot of, goodness from like moments of freedom, or I see things on a spectrum, so I'm less greed, hatred, and delusion, and less me, myself, and I. And so I guess I'm just stating my opinion is all.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you're not alone. And I think that's you can relate it to it as, you could relate to it as a working hypothesis. Until we prove it one way or another, then we won't really know. But it sounds like you're working in that right direction, and that's, the second bow, bowing to the Dhamma, is this present moment. Okay, can I bring spaciousness and non-greed, non-anger, non-delusion to this moment? And if we keep doing that, then we'll get better and better at non-greed, non-anger, and non-delusion. And then, maybe at some point it won't even matter if we have believed in it or not, and you'll just attain nirvana when the time comes. And for those of us who can, for me, the working hypothesis nature of it, I do find it helpful. I do find it is onward leading. It keeps me in the robes, which is a great thing. It's a great thing to be a monk, be a nun. I highly recommend it. No pressure, but it's awesome. But yeah, no, that makes total sense. And it's the weird thing about belief, or certainly faith, even another step, is you can't really force it. But you can, read about. I remember after my first meditation retreat, I had no view one way or another about nirvana, but then someone gave me the book, the biography of Ajahn Mun, who was a Thai forest teacher who lived at kind of the early part of the 20th century. And reading his biography, it's like, gosh, I mean, you read the suttas and you have people becoming enlightened, and okay, maybe that happened 2,600 years ago, but now reading the biography of this person who seems like has a lot of integrity, you could, if you wanted to, prime yourself one way or the other. Or just do as you're doing. It sounds like a beautiful life, trying to be less greedy, angry, and deluded. So,
Thanks.
yeah. Yeah. What was your name, by the way? Lena. Okay.
First of all, thank you for this wonderful, inspiring talk. I wanted to ask you, what do you think about a more supernatural definition of Nibbana as deathless, unconditioned, unborn?
Yeah, I believe him. I believe it. But yeah, I mean, it is almost outside of the realm of imagination. And faith is a weird thing because it's kind of like faith is maybe 4/5 imagination, and maybe 1/5 working hypothesis. But yeah, when I was talking about the transcendent versus the supernatural side of things, by supernatural, I think Rick Hansen was referring to things about other realms or psychic powers. Whereas I feel like most all of those definitions in the suttas, it's a big body. It's about 20 times the size of the Bible. You've got about 155 different synonyms for Nibbana. And largely they fall into 5 different umbrellas of the highest happiness, the highest truth, the highest freedom, the highest excellence, and just that it is a type of knowing. It's not just a blanking out. The non-born, non-originated, non-fabricated, for me, those are aspects of the highest freedom or the highest excellence. And the Buddha said the Nibbana is the highest happiness. And for some people, that's like a lot better. It sounds a lot better. It seems like a better thing to bow to on your first bow than just not suffering, but highest happiness. So, it's kind of part of that working hypothesis. Do you have any thoughts, or?
I feel like both the definitions help me at different points. Like one is not suffering, and then second is something more than everything that can be experienced, I think. So,
Yeah, it's definitely, the language is kind of escapes the Buddha even, but there are lots of synonyms like the island, the shore, the harbor, the refuge, the highest happiness, highest peace. So, thank you. I think there's a guy in the back.
I read a story about a young girl in Iran who was raped, and then to avoid punishment, the man married her, and then she committed suicide. And my question is, are some people facing such a harsh life condition that it would be just really hard to find practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of this. It's not just the precious human birth, but the Buddha said you can reflect on all these other precious, very hard to find, rare things to find in a human life. Even if you're born human, you might not have the mental faculties to understand speech. You might have the physical prosperity, the comforts, the Maslow's hierarchy. You've got to work on this fundamental level of the physical surroundings, and then the belonging or the belonging needs of Sangha. These are in a higher order of things, and you definitely need those lower ones. The Buddha acknowledged that. You see this pattern when he would go and visit his students. The first thing he would ask them wasn't like, "Oh, are you, dwelling in the bliss of Nibbana and thinking about dependent origination?" He says, "Are you doing well? Are you getting enough alms food?" Basically checking in on that Maslow's hierarchy. And the next thing he would ask, he says, "Are you getting along and not quarreling?" And then if the monks or the nuns say yes to both of those, he says, "That's great. Are you attaining higher and higher states of mental freedom?" So the Buddha himself would acknowledge that. And if there is at least one instance where there was someone who was starving and not able to listen to the teachings because they didn't have enough food. So, it's absolutely true. And if there's anything that we can do to alleviate others' suffering, then that's certainly a beautiful thing that a human can do, and a worthy project to have. Also, we are really, really extremely fortunate to be here and to have access to the teachings. This is a very, very safe place, and and to have places where we can sit in silence and feel safe. You really do. You do need that when you're in training. So, thank you. Thank you. And maybe this might be the last question.
Sort of reflecting on a lot of the stuff you're talking about, one of the ways I've viewed faith is sort of like trust and verify, like provisional in a way, that there's plenty of teachings that, by then trying it out for a while, it's like, oh wow, this is true, like interesting. And I've never connected for a lot of the more superstitious or transcendental, as you're saying, teachings. I haven't found, or even just nirvana, I guess that seems like it makes sense as to the end of continuing to practice, but I've never found any usefulness contemplating more of the supernatural stuff or the transcendental stuff. And so I guess the question for you is, how have you found that useful? Are there ways that you have found the teachings that maybe are a little bit more out there, useful in your own practice or in your own journey? Because I would find that really interesting.
Thank you very much. I think reading the suttas, reading the Buddha's discourses, started off using Access to Insight, which is a curated list of translated discourses, and they will kind of hyperlink you. If you like this sutta, here's another one just like it. And it's curated, translated by a Western, non-Buddhist born person, and he's choosing discourses largely that are not supernatural. There are supernatural discourses translated there, but basically I became very, very inspired by the extremely practical advice that the Buddha gave on speaking in a way which is harmless, helpful, and all the ways that, giving up greed, anger, and delusion. And so it's like a map. I've got this map and I'm reading these suttas, and the map seems great, and I'm gaining more and more trust in the map maker. He says, go this way, and the stuff up here is great. And I already had experience going the different way, and that stuff sucks, And then on the rest of this map, it's a big map, and there's mountains over here and rivers over here, and I haven't seen them yet, but they're on the map. And another simile is like long distance swimmers. You are doing however many, 3, 4, 6 strokes with your head just in the water, just with your head down, and you need to lift your head to take a breath every however many strokes to make sure you're headed in the right direction. And I think heading in the direction of non-greed, non-anger, and non-delusion, that's a big landmass in front of you that you're swimming towards. And for the most part, like you're saying, just swimming, just the daily habits of meditating, of trying to speak kindly, of caring for our family, doing our duties. And for me, yeah, believing in this mountain does give, if it is true that there are future lives and that Nibbana is real, then there's a sense of psychological well-being, which could be a trick. I could be totally wrong. The Buddha could have been lying. I don't believe that, but there is a sense of psychological well-being, and it feels good, and it is helpful for cultivating peaceful states of mind. There's actually meditation on upasama, or peace, upasamanusati, recollection of peace, recollection of Nibbana. Specifically, this is refined. This is the stock phrase. This is refined. This is sublime, namely the stilling of all formations, the relinquishment of all craving, dispassion, cessation, nirvana. And that doesn't actually sound that inspiring. I wish I could have ended on a better note. But for me, that is inspiring, having really in my own life experienced a lot of fevered mental states, addiction. Definitely heading in a very different direction of coolness, and it feels like a good direction, and to imagine that a human really could transcend that. It's just beautiful to believe that, and I do believe that I've met people who have attained enlightenment, and I can't know, but I have lived very, very closely to these people and watched them, and this is how the Buddha says you test someone, is you live very closely with them for a long time and observe their actions. Are they acting from greed or anger or from deluded mind states? And it's kind of a cool thing to believe. So if you can do it, if it works for you, then that's great. And if you're just doing the strokes, heading towards a good direction of being a better person, that's awesome too. And it's been great being with all of you, and I will just do those 3 vows, and anybody who wants to can do them along with me, or you can just watch to see what a Thai forest bow looks like. Usually we're not a foot and a half up in the air, so it's a little bit safer. But basically, you're sitting on your knees, and if you can't, I'll put this down here. Kind of sitting on your haunches if you can, like that. And if that's painful on your toes, no worries. And you bring your hands up to your heart. This is called Anjali. It's kind of prayer hands and a lotus. And to begin with, you bring it up to your head, your highest aspiration, and the first bow to our long-term goal. And as you come down, your hands come apart, and you bring your head down, and the hands are about 3 inches from your head as you touch your head to the ground. And you come back up, and your hands come back up to this lotus posture, or lotus hand gesture. And then you come up again, bowing to the present moment, goal, aspiration, hands coming down, head going in between the hands. Hands coming back up, and third bow, our communal goal for the welfare and happiness of all beings. 3 times. Nice. It doesn't take long at all. Good exercise. No pressure, but hope everybody has a good night. I've got a number of books. It's one book, but a number of copies. And it's a book called Thus You Should Train Yourself. And it's all kind of injunctions from the Buddha about how to train the mind. One of them, I'll just read one of my favorites from the section on right speech. So, let's see. Our minds will be unaffected, and I will utter no evil words. I will abide beneficent and sympathetic, with a mind imbued with loving kindness and without inner hate. And I will abide pervading a particular person with a mind imbued with loving kindness, and beginning with them, the whole world. So, good stuff. So, other ways you can train the mind in addition to meditation. Anybody wants some? No cost at all. Monks and nuns in our tradition, we don't use money, don't even touch money. So, Even if you wanted to give me money for it, I couldn't take it. So you're welcome to come up, anybody who wants to. And to everybody else, hope you have a good night and maybe see you next time. I'll probably visit my mom again. So.